So if the alarm goes off, please leave the building in an orderly fashion through the nearest fire exit. Please use the fire exit through the main doors of the hall or the fire exit in the storeroom adjacent to the stage. The fire assembly point is the island in front of the main entrance to the building. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Please note that the meeting will be live streamed. Please switch off mobile phones or turn them to silent. Please note that the toilet and hand washing facilities are in the foyer area. Members of the public, there is drinking water available near the main doors into the hall. While you can, of course, film or take photographs during this meeting, please note that this should be done without disruption to the meeting and can only be done from seats that have been reserved for this. Can I please therefore ask if you raise your hand clearly in the air if you wish to take photographs or film this evening? No one's indicated, so that's that. Please be upstanding, members, to receive the Chairman, Councillor Jack Lorman, Reverend Kim Lepley, and the Chief Executive, Jonathan Stevenson.
Please, upstanding members, to receive the. Oh, I've done that. I'm here. Right. I invite Reverend Kim Lepley to say a few words of prayer.
Okay. Are they allowed to sit down?
You want to sit down, you may?
Yeah. Sit down. We sit in church to pray. It is lovely to be with you again this evening. It's getting cold, isn't it? Getting cold, and there's lots of trick-and-treaters out there this evening, so it is a joy to be with you. So as we come to this meeting, I'd like to open it with prayer. So please do join me if you so wish to let's pray. Almighty God, we bring before you this evening the agenda for tonight's meeting, that we who have been entrusted with the responsibility to govern and make decisions for those who have elected us, that we are guided by the best of motives and with the interests of all for the benefit of all. Give clear minds and the desire to hear all points of view, including those who may be opposed to our own, and for an openness and respectful debate. Make us gracious and courteous to friend and opponent alike, with a real sense of working together for this district and the areas that are represented by each of our district councillors. Heavenly Father, at the same time, we commend for your blessing the work of all the employees of Rochford District Council, who maintain, implement and make possible the words that are debated, discussed and formed into policy. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. If you know the words and would like to join in, I invite you now to join me with the words of the prayer that Jesus taught us, the words of the family prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So this evening, ladies and gentlemen, may God enfold you in love, fill you with peace, and lead you in hope. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be with you and all whom you love, this night and forevermore. Amen. Thank you for your invitation.
Reverend Lepley, you're welcome to stay, but I know you're very busy person.
Thank you. I will see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'll just make sure.
Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Members, welcome to this evening's meeting. The first of full council. The first thing I would ask you to do is, if you would all please stand, so I can. Members, I would ask you to stand and join me in a moment of reflection for all those who are suffering in the conflict in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Please stand. Thank you. Right, if we can commence the meeting. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Members, we have received apologies from Councillor Mrs Daniel Belton and Councillor Elliot Mason. Are there any other apologies for members? None received. Agenda item 2, minutes of the last meeting held on the 7th of September 2023. Members, are you happy for me to sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of September 2023? Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of accuracy, I can't take issue on accuracy, but an amendment came through yesterday referring to item 160, paragraph 160. And whilst I do not take issue with the fact that some Conservative members left the meeting at that time, I do think that the minutes, and bear in mind that that part of it was in the exempt part of the meeting, but I do think that the minutes, as it's being recorded openly, should show balance and reflect the fact that at the time those members left the meeting, it was approaching 10 o'clock and there was a 402-page report to consider. And the reason that those members left was we felt that we could not do due justice to that report. So I think there should just be balance, but I'm not taking issue with the actual wording within the minutes, but I believe that part should be added just to put it in within context, please, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. My only observation of that is it would have been fortunate, I think, had that comment been made before everybody left, so there'd have been an understanding of why people left. It's all retrospective in this manner.
Chairman, if I may, I will amplify it further by saying that actually Councillor Danielle Belton, Councillor Gadsden and myself made some quite strong speeches, but they were in the exempt part. So we did make our reasons quite clear at the time, but I wasn't expecting the detail of those speeches to be recorded. So I have to say we did make our reasons quite clear, and I'm not asking for all of that to be recorded in the minutes, but just to reflect that there were reasons. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Might I suggest that the minutes of this meeting will now reflect Councillor Wootton's concerns?
Yeah, we'll take that as read. Are you happy with that, Mr. Wootton? Thank you. So are we happy having that conversation that we're happy for me to sign this, the minutes? Agree? Thank you. Right, item 3, to receive declarations. of
Sorry,
interest.
Chairman. Councillor Mrs Christine Mason was indicating, Chairman.
I did not see you. I apologise for that, Mrs Mason. If you'd like to make your point.
Yes, whilst I accept the accuracy to a degree of what Councillor Wootton has said, I think it is not totally complete. And I think if the record is showing that what he wants, they should also show that there was a member briefing. There were other conversations with Councillor Wootton and other members of the groups. They were well aware. And the report was not 400 pages. It was about 24. The rest were appendices. And they had plenty of time to read it. So I'd like that put on the minute as well. Thank you. Going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. I've got a glaze. Could you just turn your sign a little bit, please? Because I've got the light shine. I do apologise. I just can't see it properly.
Hello. My feeling is that we tried very hard that night to explain that although some of our members were at a briefing, many of us were not. And the time period in which we were given the briefing, and although one may say there was only 25 pages, the appendices needed to be read and completely understood before we could comment. So therefore, to say that 25 pages was just a small report that we could have gone through that night was totally unrealistic in the time period that we were given to do it. And I would also, sorry, Chair, I'd also like it reflected that I feel that the original minute should be amended to show the fact that we gave plenty of reasons why we did not continue with that meeting. We were there to try and work with the opposition, who did everything that evening to block any of our initiatives to support them.
Thank you. Well, the minutes are a reflection of what we took at the time, and this is all retrospective, so I'm not going to suggest that we redo those minutes under what you just said. Thank you. We'll now go on to item 3, to declare item 3, to receive declarations of interest. And at the moment, there are no declarations of interest. Has anybody, Councillor Steptoe?
Chairman, with regards to the planning item 8, I ought to mention that I'm an Essex County Councillor and I do sit on the planning committee at Essex.
Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Anybody else? Okay, we move on. Item 4. Item 4, announcements from the chairman, leader or head of paid services. First of all, Councillor John Mason, do you wish to make any announcements?
No, Chair, I have no announcements this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Right. Councillor, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got no announcements this evening.
Thank you. We then lead to agenda item 5, public questions and member questions on notice. Members? To apologise, I forgot me. So I have to do my announcements. And I'm not one to talk about me much, as you know. So, right, let's start, if I can find them. Here we are. Right, first of all, thanks ever so much. I mean, it's hopefully a light evening. Right, I want to bring to just mention that during the last, or since the last meeting, I attended the cost of living event, the By Your Side cost of living event, which was organised to provide a platform for dialogue. RDC brought together experts, local businessmen and community leaders to offer support and advice on health and being and the cost of living, which was open to all. And that, I must say, was excellent for all those that attended. I thought it was a very good evening or day. Rochford District Council also made a fair job fair, recognising employment as a crucial component of stable life. This event aimed to connect job seekers with local employees, boosting our local economy and helping our residents secure meaningful employment. Again, I was impressed. The Forget-Me-Not event, I attended the Forget-Me-Not at the Mega Centre, was another memorable occasion. Quite sad in its way, but I think they're doing a grand job down at the Mega Centre for people with dementia and that sort of loneliness. And I thought that was an excellent effort by all those concerned and something we should follow up on. And through this event, it showed commitment and support and ensuring that no one is forgotten. It was a lovely day. I also got involved, attended the Food Bank 10-year anniversary, which was a significant milestone, acknowledging the dedication and hard work of all those involved in this vital service. I also had the privilege of attending the Lord Lieutenant's National Honours Seminar. It was a great opportunity to engage with fellow leaders and discuss how we can further serve our community and recognise those who have made an exceptional contribution to our district. I did leave my name on a table somewhere, just... right. We did, in this hall, we had Make Your Market railing, which was an event designed, excuse me, to boost our local economy and support our small businesses. We encourage everybody to shop locally and support our thriving marketplaces. I would like to extend a heartfelt thanks to two people in particular. Two people, I'm sure you all know, I had a quiz night in here upstairs. And it was on behalf of SCARF, my charity. And it was a fantastic evening, more than I expected. And there was probably about 100 people attended. It was a marvellous, marvellous night. And the reason it was made the way it was is because of mainly two people. And that was Councillor Joe McPherson and Councillor Arthur Williams. Their performance was second to none. And I want to raise that as a question because I'll tell you what, you were brilliant. And I really, really want to make a mention of you two. That was professional. It was fun. It related well. The people in the group. And above all, we made £850 charity money out of that. 850 quid. And I want to run another one. So if you're going for it, don't leave the town, you know. So I would like to run. That was brilliant, and I've got to give you full credit for all of that. I mean, Holly Boyd, my civic officer, joined in, and she was collecting raffle tickets and sorting people out the door. But to believe you me, those that attended, it was brilliant. And thanks again. Thanks ever so much. Before I conclude, I would like to bring your attention to two important initiatives. My first is the Christmas card competition, open to all primary age children who live or attend school in our district. We want to see the creativity and talent of our young residents showcased during the festive season. And the subject matter I asked for it to be is something like presents in the stocking around the fireplace, you know, something like that. You know, it could be a kitten in a sock or whatever, but just a little bit of a sort of thing for the kids to get on with. And I thought that would be really nice as a Christmas card. So if we could encourage that, I'd be grateful. The second is our Citizen of the Year award, very important one. We've got a lot of brilliant people in this district. And this is an opportunity to recognise and celebrate the outstanding individuals who made a real difference to our community. And I encourage all of you to nominate someone who you believe deserves this honour. And I could think of a few. So, and we can't, unfortunately, put Joe or Arthur in because you're members. But seriously, I think that if you know people, please put them up because, I mean, I think it's an excellent idea. So thank you for that. I've said enough. Well, I've not said enough, but I've said enough for you to listen to. So we'll move on. So then we go on to, where are this one? I'll move my paperwork. All right. Right. Agenda item 5, public questions and members' questions on notice. Members, we have received one question on notice from Councillor Roger Constable. Councillor Constable, can you please read out your question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask the Executive Lead Member for Resources, Climate Change and Economy to explain why the last Climate Emergency Committee meeting was held in the middle of the afternoon, thereby excluding working councillors and members of the public from attending.
I will now invite Deputy Leader Councillor Michael Hoyle to respond to the question.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Constable. Traditionally, formal council meetings, as you suggest, at this council have largely taken place in the evenings. However, in this case, the Climate Emergency Committee is a subcommittee of the executive rather than a full council, and although not commonly, but have in the past, along with working groups taking place during the day. And in addition, I felt that given the current climate emergency, it was important that the committee met as a matter of urgency, and an afternoon slot was the only one available within the time frame. As the meetings are accessible through the live stream and subsequent recording held on YouTube, and I believe that committee had over 40 viewings when I last checked, members of the public and councillors have had a good opportunity to see the committee in action. Future meetings are likely to alternate between evenings and daytimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Constable, would you like to ask a supplementary question at all?
Yes, it may be that the committee was viewed, but I don't feel that the committee is being taken seriously by the council when it only lasted 11 minutes, and the fact that half the committee weren't able to attend. So therefore, I think that I should like some reassurance from Councillor Hoy that all committee meetings are held in the evenings and not during the day, because that does exclude a lot of people. Thank you.
So it's not a question. Councillor Hoy, do you wish to make a comment?
Thank you, Chairman. Given that the Conservatives didn't really seem to want the Climate Committee or to declare a climate emergency, I won't answer that part of the question. The meetings will take place when resources allow them to take place. I won't guarantee they're in the evenings. Working patterns nowadays are such that councillors work in the evenings as well as during the day. And I think if you do evenings to the exclusion of the day, or the day to the exclusion of the evenings, certain councillors will be excluded. So we would carry on doing it the way we are. We would alternate, hopefully, with the meetings, as I've suggested, and that councillors who wish to ask a question still can ask a question. They don't have to be present, and they can ask a question, or if they wish to see what happens, they can catch up on the recorded stream on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Well, we now take it item 6, agenda item 6, minutes of the Executive Committee meetings held between the period of the 22nd of August to the 4th of October. Are these noted, members? Right. Item 7, agenda item 7, reports from the Executive and committees to Council. Members have one report from the Climate Emergency Committee, the Climate Emergency Progress Report. I will now invite Councillor Michael Hoy to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chairman. The report is fairly lengthy. There are targets within this, and there are aspirations within this. It's clearly only 4 to 5 months since we took control of the administration, and the committee's only been running since June. So I think this is quite good so far. I'll draw your attention to a few points. First of all, I'd like to go through the setting the sustainability strategy targets for 23-24 on page 7.1.7. That's paragraph 5. There are 5 items under there, and I'll briefly outline them. The first one is to secure funding and assist in the delivery of improvements for 50 Park homes. This has started. We have an officer in place who is arranging this and dealing with the paperwork. We've already had reports back from Tower Park in Holdbridge that the work has started, and the provider, the people doing the work, they've been very well recommended, and they're doing a good job. The second one, to submit an application for phase 2 swimming pool. That's been done. We're just waiting the outcome of that. We're not sure how long that will be. The application to the phase 3C of public sector decarbonisation scheme, that's to happen in November. The fully costed business case for replacement of diesel in the Council of North Feets with hydrogenated, I've got that right, vegetable oil, was going to come to this meeting, but due to complexity of around that this is going to come to a later meeting now, so apologies for that. And in December, we'll present a fully costed plan to set out the council's path to net zero in December. As I said, that there are problems around this. A lot of this will take money and will need to go into a budget or the MTFS, medium-term financial state strategy, which is why it can take a bit longer than we hoped, and it's difficult. You'll also see on page, there's a very good graph, which gives an intention of how we can get to or close to zero carbon, which is on the wrong page, sorry about that, which is in paragraph 4.4, and we hope to follow this. I'd also have a quick word about the scorecards. I've played quite a bit publicly and within meetings and in conversations with officers about the climate plan scorecard. The latest ones have come out, and although on the face of it it's quite disappointing, we've gone from 3% compliance to 13%. That is quite a big jump, but there are areas within that where we just cannot score at all. We can't score anything on social housing. We don't have any, so we can't score on it, and it will bring down our score because of that. Other areas, I'll be talking with Marcus Hodgson this week around the biodiversity area. For instance, we were speaking earlier, and one area where you can score is for having a non-use of peat policy. We don't use peat. I was talking to Marcus, we probably haven't used it for 20 years, but we just don't have a policy on it, so we can't score on it. So it's just things like this to make sure that we actually say what we do within the policy framework. Happy to take any questions on this as well. Thank you.
Any questions, members? Councillor?
Page 7.1.4, paragraph 3.4. Of the 31 actions identified, 9 have progressed and are on track, 9 have not progressed and are not completed or likely to be completed. It doesn't give any account for the 13 that would make up the 31. I wonder if the member could explain, please.
I'm reading paragraph 3.4 you said, so we've got 9, 9, 18 and then 31. So if you would like to look at, this is the sustainability strategy, which is on page 7.19, and if you'd like to look there, you'll see it's done on a red, amber, green basis, and you can see the rest there if you want to. This is the strategy which is improved, I think it was October 22, around that time.
Sorry, my point is there's no explanation in there. If you're gonna point to 18 out of 31, surely that should be completed with the rest of the information.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just going back. I was on the wrong page, so I'm going back to the page again, which I think was 7.14. Yeah, sit down, I can answer. Right, so we have 9 have progressed and are on track. 9 have progressed but have not been completed or are likely to be completed with the original timescales, which means the others have not started yet. Thank you.
Thank you, that's helpful to know.
Councillor Cross?
Thank you, Chairman. Under 5.1, I think it is, the use of hydrogenated vegetable oils. I believe this involves no conversion work at all to diesel engine vehicles, and HVO can be mixed in any proportion with ordinary diesel. I'm just wondering why it's going to take until 2024 before we start implementing the use of HVO in our diesel fleet. We can start using it now and gain, or rather have fewer CO2 emissions as a result. Thank you.
Councillor Boyd, do you want to reply to that?
Thank you. That would be my thoughts entirely. However, we're constrained by the budget for this year, which has no money in it to use the hydrogenated vegetable oils. It will be at a cost to the council. It costs more than diesel costs, therefore we need a budget to do that. So we are hopeful to get a budget in for 23-24. If we can find the money sooner and the council approve of it, we will do this sooner. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I apologise if I've missed this in the report. I have gone through it, but I understood that Councillor Mrs Belton and Councillor Hoy were going to visit the parish councils to investigate possible joint projects. So I'm sorry if I've missed it, but I just wondered what the update on that was, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Mason. You haven't missed it because we haven't yet done that. I have spoken to a few parish councils which have started declaring climate emergencies. Rayleigh has one. I think Hawkwell has done one. So I think I spoke to Councillor Leanne Dalby there, or I've spoken with people who've spoken with her. And I'm aware that Holbridge has started the process of declaring a climate emergency. So I take your point. I will speak to Councillor Belton and we will start visiting the parish councils. Thank you.
Councillor Constable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 716 at the top, that little paragraph there that says about annual cost savings, and to convert the fleet to renewable diesel is listed as minus 94,000. So that's a cost to the council of 94,000, if I'm correct. Can the councillor confirm that is a correct figure, please?
Councillor Hoy.
I'm happy to confirm that was the correct figure at the time the report was written. If it's any different now, I'm sure Marcus Hotton will advise us. Thank you.
Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. You can't be surprised that in the supplementary answer to the question made by my colleague earlier, reference was made about the Conservative commitment. Under this Conservative administration up to May this year, you will note in the report 2.1, that is all about the achievements in the year 2022 to 23. So I do take exception to any suggestion that this Conservative administration at the time were not committed to the effects of climate change. What I think is rather nice across this chamber is that there is, across all 39 councillors, a unified commitment to doing everything we can along with our officer team. So it is best when these things aren't politicised, but I'm not one to miss an opportunity if someone else chooses to make it political. But Councillor Hoy referred to the balanced scorecard, the 3%, and he has amplified that line at 3.10. He's gone some way to explain what the balanced scorecard is, but I think what would be of keener interest to members is to understand what the target is, because I think we all accept that there will be areas in there that we can't comply, but I think all these things need to have specific and measurable objectives. And if the target is, I don't know, 45%, at least we can gauge how far we're progressing towards that target. So my question to Councillor Hoy is, can he set some measurable objectives in terms of what is going to be achieved? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hoy, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. My comments earlier about the declaring a climate emergency and the climate committee, I think I've given lots of credit for the sustainability strategy, which we are working to in this report, which was brought in under the previous administration. If we go to 5, again on page 7.17, we're talking about there to present to the December full council meeting a fully costed plan setting out the council's path to carbon net zero. This will include our targets on the scorecard. The scorecard is about what we do. It measures internally how we are doing things, what committees we've got, what policies we've got. So it doesn't actually necessarily mention carbon, it just measures what we're doing to get there. But I think the thing I like about it and why I want to follow it is it measures us against other councils as well, so we can see how we do compared to other councils. And I think that's good to keep us on our toes. Thank you.
Councillor Cross, you wanted?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to come back to the HVO question. There's no conversion of diesel engine vehicles required, so there's no cost involved because there's no conversion to using HVO. It can be used in any proportion and mixed with ordinary diesel, fossil fuel diesel. It can be mixed in any proportion. There's no conversion required. There's a 10 to 15% premium in the cost of the fuel, but it's readily available now. And I'd just like to know why we're not taking advantage of it now and saving CO2 emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. I think it's already been identified on the report that the additional cost would be £94,000 for using this. I know it doesn't sound very much, but there is no budget for £94,000 as we stand. We have to have this approved within the budget for next year or somehow find the money this year from somewhere else. That's why it's not in their own. Yes, we can, and I've spoken, we could mix it with the diesel we have in our tanks already. That's not a problem, but whatever we do will be a cost. The report which comes back to this committee once we work through that will allow the council to decide whether it wants to do 10%, 20%, 50% or 100%, whether they want to start this year because we might find some money this year, or whether it's going to be put back to 23, 24 because we will find the budget then.
I
think Marcus wants to speak as well.
Just to say, I was going to give the opportunity for Marcus Hocken to speak.
Thank you, members. So it's sorry, thank you for reminding me. It is fairly simplistic that the existing fleet can use the HVO. One of the things, of course, you have to consider is the purchase of the HVO. It can't be bought from your standard pumps. And so it's only very recently that we've actually had a fuel depot reinstalled down at South Street. So until, say, a month ago, we couldn't even consider running the fleet on HVO because there wasn't a fuel tank as such that it could be delivered to. So it's not up till then, our fleet were actually purchasing off the forecourt locally, the diesel. So there is to consider the 10-15% cost margin is on, again, forecourt costs, but we are purchasing now the fuel at a considerably lower cost, the diesel at a lower cost than that, whereas the HVO costs do not come down comparatively so. So there is a ratio between the two to consider. The business case will be coming forward. So I agree it can be done. It is a cost to the council, approximately around £100,000 a year, but we allow members to decide on doing so. But there is a premium to this. There's also a question around provenance, whereas that's why we've stalled the report. We just want to be absolutely sure on the claims on the 90% reduction in sort of CO2 carbon impact that's caused by converting to biodiesel. Some of the sources are more questionable than others. So interestingly, even the sort of central government departments have a different view. So the Environment Agency will not be converting to HVO, but DEFRA will do so. So there's a divergence of views even within a central government about whether this is an acceptable route or not an acceptable route. So we're just gaining some clarity over that before the report comes forward, and so ensuring the provenance of what we actually recommend purchasing is actually accurate, because there are cheaper sources of HVO that perhaps the provenance is more questionable. So we just want to be absolutely accurate before we bring the report forward. Some have gone, I think, quite quickly down this route, but my concern is that actually some of the provenance of this and the reliability of the statistics that have been claimed against this are not as accurate as first that we're led to believe. But that will be forthcoming in the report. Thank you.
Who's it? You wish to speak?
Can I just update that we started a project with a seller, which is, as you know, the Association of South Essex Local Authorities. And because every local authority has exactly the same issue, Catherine Hutchins from Castle Point, the Chief Executive, has said that we should start looking at doing bulk purchasing for all 6 local authorities in South Essex. That might bring the 15% premium down to 2 or 3%. So we've actioned that, and what we're doing is we're collating the data from each of the 6 boroughs in South Essex to see if we can get, rather than 250,000 litres of biodiesel, green diesel, we can purchase 1 million litres or 1.2 million litres. That way we get the bulk savings, and that takes the pressure off the financial constraints, because it is a 15% premium, which does flex with the market. But that project is activated today, and we're collating information as an Acela group procurement exercise.
Members, I think we've discussed that. Okay, I'll give you one, Mr. De Castro FD.
Thank you, Chairman. Scouring this report, looking for good things in it, and I think I found maybe one. So I'd like to know how this is achieved on 7.1.20, right at the top of the page, where it's the business travel. Now, I know in 2021, nobody went anywhere, but we seem to have reduced our costs by half from 18-19 and 19-20. I can sort of understand how we've achieved this, but how can we make this better? Has anyone given any thought to this?
Councillor, Mrs. Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, sorry, and I'm going back, question to Marcus, if that's okay, Chair. Just to clarify, the annual cost saving, which we know is going to cost us £94,000, is that in excess of the diesel costs that are already being spent?
Councillor.
Well, I can confirm that that was the sort of approximate cost at the time. Yes, that's correct. It's in excess of. So the fuel bill is around about 300,000. So it's in excess of that at the time.
Councillor Sperry.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Houghton, you've highlighted the disparity between various offices in central government. Our supplier or user of waste Facilities North have on hand information across the country. What is their findings on this issue regarding the diesel? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sperry. So I mean, obviously, I think they've looked at more how whether it's actually suitable to run the fleet, and so I think they're quite content with how it runs in terms of purchasing. So I think they're running their fleet up in Northampton, if I remember correctly, on biodiesel, and so they'll say that in operative terms, as Councillor Cross has already alluded, that there's no reason why diesel engines cannot run on biodiesel perfectly well. But in terms of provenance, I think, again, I don't think that's something they've looked into in any depth, to be quite honest. I think they just said it's something that was requested by their client there at the time. They're quite happy to undertake. Thank you.
Councillor Hoy, do you want to reply to Councillor FD's comments earlier? I'm sorry, I sort of skipped through without.
So I think that was probably more of a question for the officer than me regarding the changes. And I think Councillor Newport indicated to speak as well.
Councillor Newport.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, Chair, to Henry Muss. I was quite interested to hear about the bulk purchase project through Acela, but could the officer tell us how long that project will take to perhaps come to fruition, so we can see if that would work, so for when we're setting our budgets? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Newport. This project is live. We're collecting data. Literally, the emails went out yesterday. It's part of the working group for Acela, the Environment Sustainability Work Stream. So once we've got a full idea of what the volumes are, which we know are going to be about 1.2 million, because the districts are similar size, 2 to 250,000 litres per district. The next stage will be just go to the 3 main suppliers which have the best provenance, because there is issues around the provenance due to Chinese imports. Germany at the moment is questioning it, and it's quite a fragile system. So unless we can absolutely sort this provenance out, then the reputational risk is too high. So we're going along with the process, as we alluded to, with DEFRA department saying yes and Environment Agency saying no. So as long as we can nail down the provenance, the bulk buying purchase procurement exercise is taking place now. So within a month, we'll get an idea from a supplier what that price will come down to. But it's a difference between 250,000 litres versus something like 1.2 million litres. So that should get a discount. And then we look at strategic use of depots between the 6 boroughs. Thank you.
Sorry, if I may, Chairman, just come back on these questions in the next, and I don't know if Marcus Houghton wants to answer Councillor FD's question for me, I'd be grateful. However, I'd point out a lot of these questions around the hydrogenated vegetable oil are things that the committee will be looking at in the next few months. This is why we have put the report back from October to a later meeting, probably early next year. So what we're talking about opening this meeting hasn't yet been considered by the committee, but will be considered by the committee in the next few months. Thank you.
Well, members, I mean, I think there's been a really informative discussion, and I thank the officers for their input. It seems very interesting, far above my pay grade. So, oh, I've got a hand up again. Okay, you wish to speak before I finish this? Be the last one.
Page 7.1.10, one of the aims of this administration is to maximise opportunities for renewable energies generated in the district. I just wondered, isn't this into contradiction with the members of this administration that voted against the recent application for a solar farm in Rayleigh? Where is the commitment to this?
Councillor Hoy?
I don't feel able to comment on an application that's currently is in appeal.
Thank you. I think we've hammered this quite well, and I think it's been extremely informative, and I look forward to the next report. Anyway, we'll now move on then. So we're now going to item 8, update of the work of the Planning Policy Committee, and I now invite Councillor Jim Cripps to introduce his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members. I'm tabling this for noting. It's a narrative document, so I'm not going to read it verbatim. So I thought I'd rather give you an overall view to go with the report. Since we restarted as the Planning Policy Commission, we've had 4 Planning Policy Committee meetings. 2 of them have been conventional meetings. The other 2 have been 3-hour workshop type of meetings. We have covered a lot of ground in that time, as this report shows. The headlines sum it up. Local development scheme was considered. Spatial options feedback from the consultation was considered. Brownfield register was updated. Local plan strategy was gone through. Then we moved on to some more recently to evidence-based subjects like the economic development need assessment and the employment land needs review. There are still others to do. So the next planning policy meeting is now set for the 14th of November, and we will move on to cover a number of items. The main item, which will be the rump of that particular meeting, is coming up with the codes and master plan. Very important document and a big document, because this will set the policy for downstream development committee basis for approving applications and so on. It goes through the codes, and it's quite complex, and it has changed quite some, because in October we saw new building regulations coming through, and there are a number of issues on there that have got to be modified. For example, any home built with a drive is going to have an electric charging point on that drive. That's typically one of the greener items that they're bringing in. So we've got to get our head around that as well. So the rump of that meeting will go for that. There are others behind it that we will be working in parallel with, and that will be heritage in impact assessment, town centre health check, and local cycling and walking, which we're also striving to get through in the next session. But the rump will be the very important codes and policies that we're going to go for. In parallel with that, of course, work elsewhere with consultants is well and truly underway now. We'll start seeing the results of those coming in November, and we will then move on to look at the key consultant documents, transport assessment, and the infrastructure delivery aspect of it, which are the key documents which will either be easy, simple, or they're going to cause a bit of recycle and reiteration to accommodate them and get the best deal from that. So we are going forward. The 14th is the next stop, and there'll be another meeting after that, but we'll figure that out when we see how far we've got in the 14th meeting. So I'd like you to consider noting this report, which I'm putting forward on behalf of the Director of Place. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Mason, you wish to ask a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Cripps. The difficulties of compiling an acceptable local plan are legendary. It is a diversive and complex situation, and I'm sure that any members here that have been through the process before will understand how difficult this work is. And I would like to congratulate Councillor Cripps on the work he's done as a new member to the council, and I think he's done excellent work so far, and I would like that acknowledged. Thank you.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a couple of questions I'd like to ask, try to be as constructive as possible in regards to the local plan. It's an extremely difficult plan to actually come into fruition. And one of the things that I am still concerned about are the brownfield sites. Basically, if I may say, as a portfolio holder for strategic planning in the last administration, I brought forward a policy to look at brownfield, park brownfield and contaminated sites and bring them forward as a priority before Greenbelt, which I think is something that many of our residents want to see. So all I would like to know is the leader and members of his administration committed to looking at the brownfield sites in the whole and be looking forward to bring them forward as a priority in this next local plan. And I do have a supplementary as well, Chairman.
Councillor Cripp, can you mention?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Ward. As we discussed at the last meeting on this particular subject, we're hindbound lock, stock and barrel to the NPPF programme policy, and that makes it very clear that brownfield needs to be optimised, maximised. There are, I suggest, hundreds of paragraphs in the NPPF document. Picking one out to give it some sort of blessing, we didn't see was worthwhile. We are committed to it. The NPPF forces us to be committed to it, and we will be committed to it. It's already been discussed at length, this subject. In fact, we've reiterated it ourselves twice already. So I'd like to assure Councillor Ward that I'm pro-brownfield, and wherever possible, wherever legal and wherever allowable, we will pursue that route. Thank you.
Councillor Ward, your supplementary.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would like to draw the attention then on item 8, page 8.4, item 1.16. And just for the sake of people not being able to get to it quickly enough, a core task at the heart of advancing the new local plan is setting the plan's strategy. In practical terms, this has meant beginning a process of shortlisting options for both the plan strategy and, as an example, how development is distributed and phased and individual development sites. Now, this brings me on to the next point, which I hope will be treated as constructive. Would the leader give an undertaking to instruct planning officers responsible for planning that they contact all interested parties that may have ownership interests with brownfield, park brownfield and contaminated sites, and invite them to a free pre-app meeting to establish if their site can be brought forward for development, as this would give a clear indication to residents of land being brought forward under consideration. And I think it's actually a very constructive point I'm making, in as much that it will help us to develop the local plan strategy by actually understanding those brownfield sites that can actually be developed rather than just guessing at them from what we've got. Thank you, Jim.
Councillor Cripps.
There was a big gap between the previous Planning Policy Committee meeting to the first one that I called when I took on the position. That was an 11-month gap between Planning Policy Committee meetings. This subject had had plenty of time to be aired, but despite that, it was brought up again in one of our formal meetings, and I accepted going back to revisit it, regenerate it, go through it, and the officers produced a report on it. That was brought back to the second meeting. So we've been through this numerous times. The criteria is very complex for a brownfield site. That's been discussed ad nauseum about what does and doesn't qualify. And there are numerous aspects to it. I believe this subject's had more than enough attention. And I've just previously, a few minutes ago, committed to optimising brownfield sites. We're committed to do that. We have a schedule now, which is not insignificant, and we're going to try and make those work. And if sites on there make the cut with the NPPF rules, then they will make it through. If they don't, they won't make it through. So this covers, I think, that point. We're not going to go out literally knocking on people's doors to ask them if their bit of land is for sale, which was one suggestion that came up. I think we've done more than enough to satisfy the needs of the NPPF on brownfield.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I'm most asked by residents, and for that matter by colleagues as well, is what's happening about the allocation of sites for future housing development. A particular question is from a resident group deeply concerned about a site which they know was put forward by the landowner in 2021, spatial option consultation, which in itself, of course, is a part of tonight's report, and largely, I would dare say, a repeat of earlier reports. The next steps part of tonight's report is lacking a clear picture of the next steps and a timetable to achieve the completion of the next local plan in time for the 2025 target. So I would suggest there be an all-member briefing and a report which can be shared with residents, explaining where we are and the timetable of next steps to achieve completion of the plan. I should add that I'm very well aware that the preparation of the plan is a huge task, and I know that Councillor Cripps has driven a great deal of work on that subject since he took over the position. I note also that tonight's report is the report of the Director of Place, but signed by the strategic team, policy team leader. I have the greatest respect for the tremendous work being done by the strategic policy team leader and the main officers supporting him in the development of the plan. But I wonder whether there is sufficient resource supporting them and whether the departure of the current director will weaken that support.
I've got a three-pronged remit, none of which is human resources. So I believe I have to defer that question, and I would imagine that has to go to the CEO.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Foster and Councillor Cripps. With regard to resources, we review regularly resources. People do leave the organisation. As you're aware, you've just referenced the director who is leaving at the end of the year. At the moment, we're undertaking a recruitment process, but also we're looking at the gaps in resource required to fulfil some of the ambitions of this council. So that is a regular conversation. There is a meeting set up with Councillor Cripps and officers to talk through that and to reassure him and then future further members of the resource required. So that is happening in the next couple of weeks, so we can report back if that's the case. But I'm confident we've got the resource and we've got a process in place to ensure we've got interim resource as well.
Councillor Mrs McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. My question's on page 8.4, 1.17. It states a workshop involving members of the Planning Policy Committee has been held to consider what may form appropriate sifting criteria to help begin the process of shortlisting options. It then goes on to list that criteria. My question is, what will, the first one is in relation to the conflict with areas of heightened flood risk. So my question is, what will this be assessed by? And will it include forecasting, taking into account climate change as somewhere near a flood zone in a few years' time may well be in a flood zone? Thank you.
Councillor Cripp.
The tail end of 1.17 says includes criteria such as, and then it gives us some examples. And you'll notice that the conflict with areas of heightened flood risk is top of the list on there. We have sets of tests that have to be done as part of the local plan and the planning function that they have to be guided by. But we are looking here to avoid category 3, category 2 classifications. That was what was discussed and minuted in the meeting that we had. And I take your point about how serious this is. I've been actively involved for a year now on flooding in Rorath, so I do appreciate the problem. But we have acknowledged that we're trying to choose sites that are free of that sort of problem. And that is part of the selection process. But what we're doing at the moment via the transport assessment, we're postulating where you could put stuff and testing it against that. Until we've gone through that reiteration and started to identify the areas that are best served in all respects, then we'll have some shape to that. But we will be taking that aspect very seriously because I'm committed to it.
Councillor Mrs McPherson, you have a subsequent mention.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Cripps, I do not envy your role at all. But what I will say is, you didn't actually answer my question. You're taking into consideration flood zones 2 and 3 in this local plan. Okay, this local plan that you're putting forward for 2025. What I would like to see in there is a forecast, because there's areas outside of those flood zone areas that will be 2 and 3 come 2026 or 2027. So I'm asking you a straight question. Will you be forecasting and taking into account climate change and how those areas neighbouring zones 2 and 3 could be in a flood zone 2 and 3 in years to come, in the not so distant future? Thank you.
Councillor Cripps, do you wish to reply?
During the early stages of documentation, the flood zone risk assessment from the Environmental Agency was at stage 1. There's 2 more stages for that to go through. Not this year. Stage 2 will fall into next year. I've read the first one, which is very big, but they do take into account the global warming, tide rise, predicted tide rises and so on, and they simulate that on the maps that they're putting forward. And it's very clear to me, because close to my heart is Aurora, where I've been trying to do flood defences for some time now. And I've looked at that model and other models on there, and it does emphasise the problem. And so as far as I'm concerned, if that emphasises a problem in a zone beyond 3 and 2, i.e. 1, because it's so close to it, it's going to become a problem, I will be flagging that up, and I certainly won't be supporting that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hoy, you wish to speak?
No longer, Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to ask Councillor Cripps, paragraph 1.15 on page 8.4, you mention in the report that the Brownfield Register will be shortly published with an interactive map. Have you got an indication of how long shortly is? It's ready available. Yeah, well, that's good. Is there an intention or is there going to be a wording with it as the residents?
Can you
will
use the
see-
mic, please? We can't hear.
Sorry.
You're having a private.
As the residents will see the interactive map, as will landowners, are we going to invite anyone who's got observations in that to get in touch with the council? Because that way we could collect other sites possibly, and also the residents themselves will get a good idea how that relates to their own properties and so on. And that's just my question, if you're going to do that on the website. Thank you.
Okay, the interactive map was on the back of the written report and it is available. I actually haven't, I'll be honest, I haven't actually physically looked at it since that was written. I will look at it and make it available to, well, I'll do a note to everybody and tell you where the link is for the access to it. And that way every councillor can get to it if they want to. But it's done. I've seen it done. I just haven't checked it, gone in online to check it myself. But I will do that and get it out to everybody. I'll just copy it to every member.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Ward, you've had quite a few questions. I'll give you this one more. It has to be related to this, all right?
Thank you, Chairman. It's basically just a continuation of resource, actually. I do empathise with Councillor Cripps and what he's got to do. I really have. I do understand, having been there. I think going back to 2011, 2010, when the core strategy was being envisaged and came into fruition, there were 8 policy planners working on that. And I know how many are working on it now, and it certainly isn't 8. I'm going to guess I'm going to ask the leader, as far as that's concerned, also through to the CEO, regard to resource, because in my mind, over the years I've been involved, the resource is certainly insufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, members, I think we've knocked this to death now, and I see a big future for further reports. So we're going to move on now. And we're now on to item 9, business from last. Stand by. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. Councillor Cripps, did you want to take the opportunity to reply to that, or Councillor Hoy, whoever wants to?
No, okay, I get Councillor Ward's point. Sorry. I'm a new boy, as you can see. No, I'm quite happy for Councillor Ward to make that comment.
Okay. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Cripps has ably answered the questions that have been put. As regards resourcing, he drew to my attention the level of resourcing as might be affected by people leaving the organisation. My first intention was to say to him, yes, I'm concerned about resourcing. I'm concerned about the plan, and there is a plan. There's a very detailed plan, which is held by the officers, which I know Councillor Cripps has, and I believe it will have been shared in an appropriate form with planning policy. The purpose of me standing now is to say to you that I've invited Councillor Cripps to speak and have a meeting with the Director of Place, the team leader for planning policy, and the Chief Executive to look at that plan and ensure that there is resourcing if the plan is to be unaltered, And if there isn't resourcing, then the plan is rejigged with reference to that committee. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Now, members, due to a request, I'm going to have a 5-minute recess for comfort, and then I'd like you to get back here as soon as possible. So I'm just going to adjourn for 5 minutes. Thank you. Members, if we could start taking our seats, please. Thank you, members. We'll now commence and carry on with the meeting. We're now moving to item 9, business from the last council meeting.
Sorry, Chair, we need to note that last item.
Sorry, who was that?
I believe we need to note the last item.
No, I don't think that was an item worth noting. I know Mr. Councillor Cripps said it for noting, but it wasn't down as a noted item, so.
Just for
Well,
information.
if you're all noting it, then I'm fine. I'll take it as noted, if you're happy to note it. Well, that's what I mean. See, friendship, good, lovely. But
Thank you.
item 9, business from last council meeting. Members, are there any questions relating to the business of the last council meeting? There are none. Item 10, report on urgent decisions. There are none. Item 11, report of the leader on the work of the executives. Members, I will now invite Councillor John Mason to present the leader's report.
Thank you, Chairman. You've heard from 2 of the lead members at length this evening, so I won't repeat any of the work that they've been doing. I'd like to just run through the things that the executive are going to be dealing with over the next few weeks. I'll start with the reports to the executive committee on the 16th of November. And we have 3 reports, maybe another coming forward. Skateboard facilities, 2 skateboard facilities are being recommended by Councillor Julie Gooding and by Mr. Houghton, and they will be coming forward for approval. We have the Q2 budget monitoring report from the Director of Resources, and I have 1 recommendation presently from the ONS that met in October. But ONS is meeting on the 2nd of November, so I need to duly note that. Reports coming to full council on the 14th of December. There's going to be an officer report on the annual reviews of exempt items. This is something that's required upon the monitoring officer in the Constitution, and it's never been brought to council. So I'm asking it to come to council to conduct the current year's review and whatever number of additional reviews the monitoring officer can build in the time frame. Further, at the full council in December, the lead member for finance, Councillor Hoy, will be bringing forward a review of fees and charges for 2024-25, instead of bringing it forward at the same time as the budget. Lead members have held a number of fact-finding discussions with officers over the last few weeks. Councillor Julie Gooding has been talking to the manager of open spaces and the director, Mr. Houghton, about 3G pitches. We have been meeting to have a briefing on the next round of the grant funding under the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, doing it early as we can so that we can consider the structure that's already been set, to consider potential projects that can fit within it, call for further ones, and ultimately meet with the Rochford Partnership and a report to come to the executive in January. The lead member, again, Councillor Hoy, also assisted by Councillor James Newport, has brought forward discussions and fact-finding on business improvement district opportunities, otherwise known as BIDs. And something which goes under a terrible name, which is under Councillor Cripps, is something called the LC WHIP. And you may all look around wondering just what that is. I can tell you it is local cycling and walking infrastructure plans. And it's about unlocking government and Active Travel England funding with Essex County Council. There was a lot of fact-finding in that, in particular, potentially looking at routes as currently drafted. Consultations. There's a number of consultations going on at present. There is a consultation on the new leisure contract with residents, and you've seen how it's been promoted across the district. And also SLC consultants are currently working with stakeholders on both the feasibility and the procurement streams of the project. Councillor Hoy has put forward, and we are currently running a budget survey with residents. In addition, we all enjoyed, those who could make it, we all enjoyed the members' budget workshop. And we will process from there. That completes my review of what the executive are going to be doing over the next few weeks. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Members, we'll look at item 12, agenda item 12, notice, motions on notice. Members, you will be aware of item 12 has been withdrawn by Councillor Reenshaw. And so, members, this concludes the business for this meeting. And thank you all for attending, and I declare the meeting closed at 9:53. Thank you. 8:53. Apologies.
Members, please be upstanding while the Chairman, Councillor Jack Lawman, and the Chief Executive, Jonathan Stevenson, retire from the meeting.